Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good Saturday afternoon out there, everyone, and welcome to your number one source for Native American television news, Native News Today. I'm your host, Jason Salzman, from here in the Mvskoke Media Studios. As we get ready for this week's episode, lots of things to get to, lots of great, big, important things happening this week here at Mvskoke Creek Nation at our jewel, the jewel of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, and I am talking about downtown Altmulgee, the historic Council House. And we have big news out of the Council House. We had a groundbreaking to announce some major renovations that are taking place there. We can't wait to show you that here in just a moment. Also, we'll get to some financial information for some of the nation's business entities. A lot of people out there like to pay attention to that, like to know what's going on there. We've got some great content, some great interviews with some of those folks that are principally involved. So we got a great show this week. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You are watching Native News Today. And welcome back to the program as we get started with this week's episode. Our first story up is the groundbreaking at our historic Council House this past week here at Mvskoke Creek Nation. You know, if you've came through downtown Altmulgee, you've seen the Council House. There's so much history involved there. Not just a beautiful place, a beautiful building to look at, but the House of Warriors, the House of Kings there in the Mvskoke Creek Nation, early forms of government taking place right there at the Mvskoke Creek Nation Council House. Will Rogers himself said, "Don't tear that thing down. The only place you can find a Creek Council House is in Altmulgee, Oklahoma." So lots of history there. And the Mvskoke Creek Nation Museum Archives Department, along with the Interior Department, worked tirelessly on this effort to get things going the last few years. And they were so glad to be able to roll it out to the folks there that were gathered in Altmulgee this past week. Lots of tribal officials and just people happy to see this project coming to life.
Thank you, Secretary Asbell. Once the rehabilitation of the Council House is complete, the Mvskoke Creek Nation will begin to transform the inside of the Council House so that it can be used as an educational resource that will, for the first time since 1906, cohesively present the history, context, and present-day operations of the Mvskoke Creek Nation tribal government. The history of the Mvskoke Nation during the Council House era will be presented alongside contemporary government functions to remind visitors that the Council House represents a people who thrived in this place in the latter part of the 19th century, but who also continue to exist and thrive in the 21st century. The Council House will be a historic site, but it will also be an active government building where the current Principal Chief and National Council can once again hold official government meetings where the public can attend. Exhibits will be interwoven with past and present elements to paint a portrait of the ways in which the Council House era of governance is still preserved, and elements of that era remain a vital part of contemporary Mvskoke government functions. The exhibits will address the diversity of cultural and political identities within the Mvskoke Nation and the discussions and conflicts that arose within the nation over how to decide the fate of Mvskoke land, lifeways, and traditional forms of governance during a turbulent period when the Mvskoke culture and sovereignty was under attack. We would like to educate Mvskoke citizens as well as visitors about the historic legacy of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, not just here in Okmulgee, but throughout the nation's territory that spans an 11-county area within the state of Oklahoma. Visitors will be invited to interact with the objects and interactive elements in the exhibits, as this helps deepen their understanding of the messages we are trying to convey. This will not be a museum in its traditional sense, as there will be minimal use of cases. Instead, we will provide replicas and objects that can be touched and utilized within this space. We want visitors to know that Mvskoke people defied stereotypical understandings of Native peoples during this period by running their own schools, creating a large body of written records that reflect their ability to regulate business and government affairs, codify laws and enforce them through a system of courts that were run exclusively by Mvskoke people, develop systems of care to provide for their young, elderly, and disadvantaged, and define and defend their borders and citizens, just to name a few things. This is not by any means an exhaustive list of functions that were carried out in the Council House, but it represents the range of functions that the Council House government played between 1878, or 1868 really, and 1906. We have future plans to build a visitor center for the Council House that will serve as a supplementary space for additional exhibits, community gathering spaces, collection storage for items that reflect and help tell the story of the Mvskoke people, and a research space where visitors can engage with the museum and archival collections to learn more about Mvskoke and Southeastern American Indian cultures. Thank you very much for your time. We started with the architects, so that's the Seltzer Schaefer Architectural Firm and Walter Sedovic Architects, and really going into just kind of addressing some of the structural issues that needed to be taken care of with the building, as it is an old building. And I guess maybe backing up before that in the planning process, deciding what was going to happen with this building. And we knew it had served as a museum for many years, and it's just not the best structure in terms of serving as a museum, holding collections and things like that, because it's really a museum piece in and of itself. From 1878, against the only pre-statehood structure that the Mvskoke Creek Nation owns. So we really wanted to do it the honor we really felt like it deserved. And so our plan had been to turn it into a historic site and reinterpret it so that it told the story of what happened there when this was the seat of the Mvskoke government between 1868 and 1906, when there was an attempt to terminate the Creek Nation by the federal government. And that's kind of what we decided upon for that. It will certainly be a tourist destination, and it will, when I say it's not a museum in its traditional sense, what I mean is there still will be a few cases for original objects, but we really want to have visitors interact with the things in the Council House when they come to visit. For example, we're working with some folks that want to kind of convert some old desks, some period desks, into cases, so you can still sit down at the desk. You can see what maybe the chiefs were working on at the time. We're going to be getting replicas of original documents from the Creek National Records, which is what we're primarily relying on for the research to develop what goes into on the inside of this of the Council House. And so you'll also see things like the school. There was a school that was operated out of the Council House through the Board of Education when it was functioning as the seat of the Creek government. We'll be talking about the Light Horsemen and the role they played, the Supreme Court, of course the justice system, the executions, and the whippings and lashings and things like that, but that's really more of the justice system, and among other things, but also what the other committees of the House of Kings and House of Warriors, the types of things they were dealing with, and of course allotment, the different rebellions that occurred within the Creek Nation, like the Green Peach War and Chitoharjo Rebellion and things like that. So.
You know, we've been working on this for 4 years, and the nation bought it in 2010, and the former group was in there to about 2013, And so about 4 years we've been working on it, and it's been empty for 4 years. So it's time to get people back in the building and get this restoration going. Sure. So this is basically a $3.5 million project. The original, about a little over $200,000 was appropriated for the architects. We got about $2.2 million from the National Council for an appropriation. So you can do the quick math and realize that we're $1 million short, and that's where the historic tax credit came in. And we went through the entire process. It was an arduous process, very complex for a non-tax-paying entity to be able to create a system where you can actually qualify for tax credits. And I think we're the first Indian tribe that I know of that's ever done it. I think University of Central Oklahoma or Oklahoma City University had done it on their law school. And so we knew there was a model out there for us to succeed. It's just willingness to go through that process. And we're lucky enough to have One Fire and Kodak because, even though you get a tax credit, $1 million, it's usually on the back end. So you're still $1 million short from a construction standpoint. So they were able to give us a construction bridge loan during this process, basically interest-free, just to get the process done, and they will monetize those tax credits at the end, and it'll be a net for the Mvskoke Nation for $1 million. So the construction cost is $3.5 million, but we also have about a $500,000 cost to develop the programmatic scope for the inside. Usually you'd like to have all those funds at one time, and you can develop those concurrently. In this situation, obviously with the funding situation that we had to get unique on that aspect as well, and we applied for a grant through the National Endowment for the Humanities. And one of the recent articles that I read was the NEH, along with NEA and a lot of other arts associated funding from the federal government are on the chopping block. So it's very concerning. I'm actually heading to D.C. later this afternoon to be a part of the self-governance negotiations, and those are some of the things we're going to be bringing up, that it has a negative effect on Indian country when they cut those funds, and it's disconcerting. I think what we've done in Okmulgee is we've embraced each other. The Okmulgee Main Street and Chamber of Commerce, the City Council, has embraced what Creek Nation can bring to this community. And I think as a nation, we've embraced what the community can bring to us. And what we want to do is we really want to create a cultural mecca in downtown Okmulgee so that we have tourists, visitors flocking to downtown, creating almost like a mini Santa Fe, so that our artists, our artisans, our business folks can come and profit off that and engage in cultural sharing, and so that people can learn about the Mvskoke Creek Nation. And we believe that cultural tourism is a $1 billion industry, and I think the nation needs to tap into that, and the local community can tap into that as well.
And we want to thank everybody that were involved in that event there. Mr. Chris Asbell, the Secretary of the Interior here at Mvskoke Creek Nation. Also, all the great people at the Museum and Archives Department that put it together. They do a great job there. And so we were just so glad to be able to be a part of the event. And a wonderful day for Mvskoke Creek Nation as we renovate the Council House back to many of its original features. So that's going to be quite a treat for folks, not only at Mvskoke Creek Nation, but for visitors of the city of Okmulgee and to our tribe. As I said earlier, the Mvskoke Creek Nation has several business entities, things that conduct business for the tribe. One of those the main ones is the Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprise, involved in several contracts, things like that, as far as getting business to come to Mvskoke Creek Nation, therefore working with them in essence, and we wanted to speak with them on their financials. We were able to do that recently, and Jared Moore put this together for us this week.
Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprises reported $18.5 million in sales and $70,501 profit for fiscal year 2016. MNBE previously reported $16.4 million in sales and a loss of $954,589 for fiscal year 2015. This is an increase of $2.1 million in sales and $1 million in profit from fiscal year 2015. MNBE contributed $120,000 to the Mvskoke Creek Nation in fiscal year 2016.
What we've done is for the past several years is made sure that we set aside $10,000 a month to be able to give back to the nation. Outside of that, then we try to utilize those dollars then for like these new companies and new things that we're trying to do to fund these, because if not, then we go be going back to somebody to try to get the funding. So we like to keep it internally to be able to fund those projects.
He expects the contribution to Mvskoke Creek Nation to remain the same next year. Legislation was passed in 2005 that requires Mvskoke Nation business enterprises to submit a distribution to the Mvskoke Creek Nation each quarter. The amount is required to be 12% of its quarterly net income. The amount is to be distributed by Mvskoke Creek Nation into required accounts, 40% to contract health and 60% to economic development and land acquisition. More information can be found in the Mvskoke Creek Nation Code Annotated Title 17, Section 6-112, found at www.creeksupremecourt.com. The financial report issued to Mvskoke Media by Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprises also stated that $124,994.76 in tribal sales tax and $2.2 million in fuel tax rebates was collected for fiscal year 2016 through the Mvskoke Creek Nation travel plazas located in Okmulgee and Mvskoke. These funds go to the Mvskoke Creek Nation Tax Commission as revenue and not MNBE.
Regardless of the financial profit or loss that the travel plazas do, the nation probably, since 1998, somewhere in that area, collects fuel rebate monies back every quarter. And so that's been going on will be now for almost 20 years. And so at the end of the fiscal year 2016, I think so far it's collected about $38 million. Those dollars don't come into this operation. Those directly go into the nations for appropriation. So when that was done back then, that was a smart move because that made sure that there was dollars coming back in. And then most of the tribes have a similar deal with the state. The other piece to that is that there's a tax that we charge on goods and services because we're owned predominantly by a tribal-owned company. So you can say we average about $125,000 a year in sales tax that goes back to the nation for use for them also. So that's why to me those two items and the fact too that those travel plazas have provided jobs for 20 plus years, plus with Burger King. So it's an opportunity both here in Okmulgee and Mvskoke to hire people and have an impact locally with it. So
Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprises is looking at architect plans to upgrade the travel plazas, particularly the one in Okmulgee.
Originally, we were talking about a new construction. After reviewing some of that, we've already come up with about 4 or 5 different options of what we would want to do. One of the things that we want to be able to cater to is our truckers. There's a lot of trucking traffic here. So what we're looking at is to also be able to add some restrooms onto this operation, add some other amenities for them because we see that as a big piece of our business there. A couple of the other things that we've been working on this past year is with Taco Bueno. The owner of Taco Bueno, Mr. Verity, also owns the Burger King that we've had and has been a very good customer of ours for the past 20 years. We'll be in the process of negotiating and renewing his lease for Burger King. And then on top of that, then our hopes is finalizing a lease with him of putting a Taco Bueno here.
He said the plan is not to seek funding for the upgrades from the Mvskoke Creek Nation, but for Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprises to fund it themselves. Anderson estimated that initial upgrades would start in 60 to 90 days and did not have a timeline for the complete project. He said the travel plazas are a source of revenue for Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprises, but have seen some impact from the Quick Trip opening in Mvskoke and the Love's opening in Okmulgee.
Always when there's something new, you get some impact from that. So I think we're just kind of seeing where that's happened. I know we've had, and I can see that in some of our sales tax here locally. We've seen some of that drop. But I think too, as some of these new things that we're going to be doing, if we can get the things with Taco Bueno and some of that going there, that's certainly going to help draw things to our site and grow our business there. And the same thing for in Mvskoke. You've got a major player sitting down on that end. Of course, we're on the other end. A lot of the larger folks like the Loves and even probably the Quick Trips, they have national contracts with some of these national trucking firms. We have been in contact with some of these firms. I know that some of them have expressed an interest in some changes, and so we hope to be able to make some impact through that also. So
the financial report states that MNBE is anticipating the opening of its first Rex's Chicken restaurant in May at 11982 South Memorial in Bixby.
We spent time looking in 2016 for a location. We had probably 3 or 4 different sites that we thought might work for us, and here in 2017 we were able to identify a site on Memorial. We've signed a lease, and we anticipate in May being able to open up our first Rex's Chicken operation. So we're really excited about that, and see that as an opportunity because we're the master development agent for Rex's, and so having that in place will allow us to grow with other franchises across the United States. So that's a great opportunity for us.
Anderson said things outside of the company's control caused the holdup on developing the franchise.
A lot of it too was looking at the opportunity. Was it the right time? At first, we were looking at these travel plazas. Those got delayed. We were looking at expansion. We were looking at different things. So there was a lot of variables that happened that caused that.
Anderson said that through the leads they've received, there have been about 300 to 400 people from around the U.S. and internationally who have expressed interest in opening a franchise. He said he expects MNBE revenue to increase once they begin to franchise and build locations.
I feel like our store alone here could generate a net of about $200,000, close to $200,000 a year.
Anderson said MNBE's technology arm has been working on a contract with the River Spirit Casino Resort.
We have a very large contract. We've probably done close to $5 million with our tribe on the River Spirit Margarita project. Our guys are responsible for the installation of surveillance cameras and access control. And so probably by the time we get through, we will have installed over 2,000 cameras there on site. So to be able to go out and to talk about what we do and let people know our people, and of course we have a lot of our tribal people that work within that group, is really something to brag about, and we appreciate having the opportunity, to do that.
According to the financial report, Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprises also provided $242,526.91 in startup funding for a holding company called Mvskoke Nation Businesses, LLC.
MNB, when it was first formed, it was by itself, and then it was, it came into the SBA 8A program, and as a graduate of the 8A program, it can't have any ownership of any of this here. We can't participate in any future 8A or anything like that in terms of our work. We're graduated. So the purpose of that is, if you look at most tribal companies or tribes and Alaska Native corporations, they form holding companies and they form these companies under that. You do that because the thing that you do is that you set up separate NAICS codes, which is the codes that you have when you go in to do federal work. In some of those, depending on what they are, you can only do a certain amount of volume of work over a 3-year period. If you go over that volume, then you're no longer considered small business. So the purpose of this is to set up those individual businesses so that we don't go over those deals. They're separate from each other, but they do report to this holding company. However, MNB doesn't have anything to do with those companies as we continue to move along here. It's had a lot of past performance in the things that we do, using that to help grow these companies.
Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprises and the holding company have similar staff, but are 2 separate entities.
Instead of having the support services like we have accounting or you have HR, different components of that, is putting those type of individuals under the business services side of it, so that you're not charging a cost to something full cost, but you're separating that cost out so that the cost remains low for each one of these divisions.
Anderson is also the CEO of Mvskoke Nation Businesses. He said they will also be able to offer the business services to MCN chartered communities. The report shows businesses under the holding company to include Mvskoke Staffing Solutions, Mvskoke Asset Protection, Mvskoke Business Services, Mvskoke Distribution and Logistics, Mvskoke Development Company, and Mvskoke Manufacturing. Anderson said MSS is up and running to place individuals for temporary work.
This is an opportunity for us to, for our tribal members to not only, deal in the commercial side with anybody. I mean, we can staff anybody, but it's also, to me, a plus for our tribal people to feel comfortable enough to come to us and let us help them try to get placed and get employment.
Anderson said the agency has been able to place citizens with commercial businesses and the nation itself. He said the agency will eventually branch out to federal government jobs. Anderson said it will take time to grow the companies before they are able to make financial contributions back to the nation.
I think the realistic things for people, and hopefully they understand this, is that, if you start businesses, usually it's going to take about 5 years for those to get profitable. It just depends on what opportunities you get. If you get into manufacturing, it could be 10 years. So the reality with some of these is that you're needing those dollars then to reinvest in what you're doing or other opportunities you're trying to build. That's the reason why, even like when we talk about the travel plazas, there's other revenues that are coming in, and then even as we build retail and stuff, looking at our tax structure, how can we ensure that we, if an operation's coming in, how can we drive more taxes there from that? Even though we may not own it, how can we drive more to it? So to me, that's the big point. So
the fiscal year 2017 first quarterly report is available to view at www.mcn-nsn.gov. MNBE also presents financial information to the National Council on a quarterly basis through the Business, Finance, and Justice Committee. The presentation is conducted in an executive session. However, citizens are able to stay to hear each business entity status. Mvskoke Media is unable to report during council executive sessions. For more information about MNBE or MNB, visit www.mnbe.com or call 918-752-3150.
And that'll wrap us up for another episode of Native News Today. I want to thank everybody that was involved in putting this one together. Lots of great work by Jared Moore on the MNBE piece, and also getting to go to the council house for the big event this week. So glad to be able to take part in that, and can't wait to see that come to fruition. Ladies and gentlemen, before I leave you every week, I always want to direct you to our social media sites. But this week, more so than others, we want you to look on Facebook in the next few days, in this coming week. We have a new email subscription service that we're going to be offering to our citizens that want to get email alerts basically about all of our news, our breaking news, our headlines that are coming out on MvskokeMedia.com, all the Mvskoke Media outlets, whether it be Mvskoke Radio, Native News Today, or the Mvskoke Nation News. We want to be able to offer that to you citizens. That way you get it into your email, are all the way, always up to date on our news. So be looking for that this week. You all have a great one. We will see you next time, same place, same time, right here at Native News Today.